If you and I were to head down to the driving range and buy a bucket of 100 golf balls each and just head out there with our clubs, the most likely reason for us being there is to see if we can keep hitting that shot again and again and again. And the question is, can I do this again? Can I do it one more time? And can I do it as consistent as I have been? Unless you're going there for a social reason or for a celebration, that's why you're going there. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be playing the who can hit the ball the furthest shot, who can hit the windscreen of the car first, and who can get the ball into the net. Someone who has been a real inspiration to me and spoken into my life over these last few years quite a lot has been Eddie O'Neill. And every time I've had the opportunity to sit with him and have a coffee, it's always been brilliant to see this thread of consistency in his stories, in his ministry experiences, and in the things that he's been pouring into my heart. And Eddie always says to me, long obedience in the same direction. This thing about consistency being evident. And I want to suggest just something very quickly. I want to suggest that consistency doesn't come through reaction during a time of crisis. Consistency is clearly evident from your understanding of your calling. And as I look to Paul and his life, I see someone who is seriously consistent. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 4, when Paul writes to Timothy and he's been teaching him and helping him think and put into practice building a church, putting the people into the right places. In chapter 4, there's this moment where Paul actually starts to speak as if he's not sure what's going to happen and is his end near, as in his physical end. It sounds like that. And then we get to verse 7, and Paul writes this. He says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now, I've always heard that verse in different settings. I've actually often heard it in funerals. But when I look at this verse and then look at Acts and see the journeys of Paul through Acts 15, 16, 17, all the way through to 28, and you see the life that he lived and the moments that he embraced and the people he was with, when he was with Barnabas and Silas and Timothy and Luke and the others, there's this example of consistency. And every time Paul heads out, every time he goes somewhere and he meets with people, it doesn't matter if it's 2 people or 200 people. It doesn't matter if it's a small group, and it doesn't matter if it's an entire city that's gathered together. Paul is consistent. And it doesn't matter if he goes into a place and there's a bit of a challenge. He'll spend 3 months in this place, or he'll spend 1 week in this place, or he'll spend a few years in that place. He'll go into moments, and he went into moments where he was accepted and people were intrigued, and he went into moments where he was not. He was totally rejected. There were moments where he was beaten and he was stoned and he was flogged and he was chased out of town, but he went to the next one and he might have experienced something similar. But there's this consistency, just to do it again and again and again. There's something that Paul drew from in understanding his calling, a calling that he couldn't change his mind on. He couldn't do something different about, because he knew this was his calling. It was aligned to God's announcement over his life, and it was aligned in a way to the gifts that he had to be able to deliver on that. And I just want to ask you to think about your own leading and your consistency in leadership. Just for a moment, stop and strip everything away that you've learned in terms of little techniques to get you around this corner, or the little catchphrases to throw out in a moment of being put on the spot, or an opinion that you might have about something. Just take all that away, because when things go wrong, you see consistency very clearly. And I think it's because consistency actually comes from something of your values and your character. And this understanding your calling just enables you, it certainly did for Paul, to go back again and again and again. And talking about golf, I was taught golf by my grandfather. Me and my brothers, and we would go down to the beach with my grandfather, and he would let us choose our club, and he would give us a bucket of balls, and we would go down onto the sand, and then he would tell us to build this little sand tee, and then you put the ball on the top of the tee, and then you get your club, and he tell you to hold the grip of the club properly. And I mean, I remember some of this was a little bit tedious. I wasn't finding it the most exciting. And then we would line up our ball, and he would say, okay, pick your spot on the horizon. Where are you aiming for? And so you lined your body up to it, and then he said, okay, concentrate on your swing and keep your head down, and then you hit the ball, you struck the ball, and then, okay, now do the next one. Now do exactly the same. Go find that line on the horizon again, not a different line. Find that line on the horizon again, and line your body up and concentrate on the swing and keep your head down and hit the ball. And you do it again and again and again until, you've played all your shots. And then we would walk down the beach, all of us, the four of us, we would walk down the beach. And we never celebrated how far the ball went from the tee. We always celebrated the distance between the balls when they rested. Now you might laugh and think, well, that's because now you didn't have to go so far to collect them. And I suppose part of that's right, but actually we were celebrating the consistency of the shot. I'll never forget that. And leadership that's consistent, it keeps you and it keeps everyone around you aware through the good and through the tough times. Really trust you, enjoy leadership that's consistent.